Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a bit of a shortcut, really, to get incredibly well-informed on a market that, well, it quite literally weaves itself into almost every part of our daily lives.
It really does.
We're talking about the global textile fiber market. Our mission here is to unpack the key dynamics, the regional power shifts, and maybe some surprising growth trends.
Hmm.
And it's all pulled directly from the Global Textile Fiber Market Forecast to 2033 report by Cognitive Market Research. So to really set the scale, let's start with the big global numbers first. This market was already pretty substantial back in 2021,
Oh, yeah.
generated just over $40.8 billion.
30.8 billion.
Exactly.
Yep.
Fast forward to 2025, and that's projected to climb to nearly $48.7 billion.
Why to jump already?
Right. But here's where it gets really impactful. By 2033, we're looking at a market size of almost $70 billion. Specifically, $69.45 billion.
Wow.
That represents a pretty consistent global compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of about 4.5% from 2025 right through to 2033.
And what's fascinating here, I think, is how fundamental these textile fibers are. It's so much more than just, the clothes we wear.
Absolutely.
Think about it. They're in our homes, our cars, even cutting-edge medical devices, and countless industrial applications.
True.
So when you look at that steady, significant global growth at 4.5%, it's not just some fashion trend. It signals a really robust expansion across a foundational component of global industry and, well, consumer products, too. It tells us a lot about manufacturing shifts, maybe even evolving lifestyles.
Okay, let's take that global picture then and drill down into the regional specifics, because this is where we start to see some really interesting stories emerge.
Definitely.
Let's kick off our regional tour in North America. What's the picture there?
Okay, North America. It holds a significant share of this market. Revenues were exceeding $13.6 billion back in 2021.
$13.6 billion.
Yeah. And the report projects it to reach just under $22 billion by 2033.
Nearly $22 billion.
Wow. And it's growing at an annual rate of just over 4%. So what's important, I think, is how consistently it contributes to those global figures we just talked about.
And within North America, well, it's probably no surprise that the United States is the absolute leader.
Unsurprisingly, yes.
It alone accounted for over $11.2 billion in 2021. Its growth, while strong, is just under 4% annually. But when we look north to Canada, we see something particularly notable.
Yes, Canada is actually showing a slightly higher growth trajectory than the U.S. Its projected CAGR is 4.7%.
4.7, that's quite strong.
It is. That's a significant pace for, an established market. And Mexico, too, while it's starting from a smaller base, it's also on a solid upward path, growing at over 4.2% annually. So it indicates a pretty healthy regional dynamic overall.
Okay. From North America, let's hop across the Atlantic and explore Europe's numbers. How does Europe compare in terms of, say, scale and pace?
Well, Europe represents a sizable market, too. Generated nearly $8.7 billion in 2021.
$8.7 billion.
Okay. And the forecast is for it to reach over $14 billion by 2033. Its overall regional CAGR is just a bit over 4%, around 4.08%.
Right.
What's particularly striking within Europe, though, is Germany's performance.
Yes. That's what caught my eye in the report. Germany seems to be leading Europe with the highest GGR in the region, pushing nearly 4.8%.
Exactly. 4.79% to be precise.
That's really driving growth there, isn't it? Moving from about $1.7 billion in 2021 to almost $3 billion by 2033. What do you think is fueling that specific surge in Germany?
Well, Germany's strong growth isn't entirely surprising when you consider its robust manufacturing base, particularly in industrial, textiles, and the automotive sector.
Makes sense.
It really showcases how specialized, high-value applications can drive significant market expansion, even in a mature economy like you see across much of Europe.
Yeah.
We also see, robust, consistent expansion across the UK and France.
Right.
Both are growing at healthy rates over 3.5%, though the UK's growth at about 4.37% is notably higher than France's 3.57%.
Interesting. And then on the other end of that spectrum, I saw Russia shows the most modest growth in Europe, a TGR of just over 2%.
That's right, 2.011%.
That's quite a difference compared to Germany's nearly 4.8%.
Indeed. And the report also details other European countries contributing steadily.
Yeah.
You've got Italy, Spain, Sweden. They're all expanding at healthy rates, sort of in the low to mid 4% range.
Okay.
While countries like, say, Switzerland and Luxembourg show more moderate growth, it really paints a picture of a diverse European market with varied internal dynamics. Rest of Europe collectively is around 4.1%.
Got it. Now, If the previous numbers were significant, listeners should probably prepare for Asia Pacific. You hinted at this earlier. This region isn't just growing, it seems like it's practically rewriting the rules of the global textile fiber market. What's the big picture here?
Absolutely. Asia Pacific is the powerhouse you mentioned. It starts from a substantial base, $12 billion in 2021,
12 billion.
and is projected to reach an astounding $22.3 billion by 2033.
Whoa.
And crucially, it boasts the highest regional HEAGR globally, over 5.3%. This is where the truly dynamic expansion is happening on a global scale, no question.
And within Asia Pacific, China is perhaps not surprisingly the dominant player, projected to grow from just over $3.2 billion to more than $6.2 billion by 2033. That's a solid 5.5% CAGR.
Yep, 5.519%. Very strong.
But there's another country in Asia that's, well, truly breaking records, isn't there?
That would be India, yes. What's truly fascinating here is India's trajectory. It's demonstrating the strongest growth rate in Asia-Pacific with an impressive 6.15% CAGR.
Over 6%.
Over 6%. And this isn't just about rising domestic demand, though that's part of it. It seemed to be a powerful reflection of strategic government initiatives, like Make in India, boosting local manufacturing,
Right.
and a growing focus on high-value technical textiles. India's projected growth from about $1.66 billion to nearly $3.4 billion by 2033, well, it signals a major future player and maybe a strategic shift in global production capabilities.
That's huge. Japan also holds a substantial share, I saw, growing at nearly 4.6% annually. And South Korea is right there, too, with about a 4.7% CAGR. It's clear this region is just a hotbed of activity.
It really is. And we also see robust expansion from other key economies. Think Australia, Singapore, Southeast Asia, with Singapore and Southeast Asia in particular showing very high growth rates, both over 5.7%.
Incredible numbers.
It just reinforces Asia-Pacific's leadership in this whole sector. Taiwan strong, too, nearly 4.9%.
Okay. Moving south, then, let's look at South America's role in this market. How does it fit into the global puzzle?
South America's market generated nearly $2.7 billion in 2021. That was $2.69 billion.
Okay.
And it's forecast to reach just under $4.74 billion by 2033. That reflects a robust 4.8% CAGR for the period. So it's a region with solid, consistent growth.
And Brazil is clearly the largest market there, projected to grow at over 4.6% annually. But I noticed Argentina seems to be showing particularly strong growth.
Yes, absolutely. Argentina is showing a standout CAGR of over 5.3%, 5.337% actually,
Over 5 point.
making it a key growth driver within South America. Other countries like Chile, Colombia, and Peru are also showing healthy expansion, generally in the mid-4% to 5% range. Chile's over 5%, actually.
Okay.
So it contributes to the region's overall positive outlook. Rest of South America is looking at nearly 5% growth, too.
Good to know. Next up, the Middle East. What's the outlook there for textile fibers?
The Middle East generated over $2 billion in 2021, $2.08 billion, and it's projected to reach more than $3.6 billion by 2033,
Okay.
growing at a solid 4.7% CAGR overall. So it's a region that's steadily increasing its presence in the market.
Saudi Arabia is certainly a key player in this region. Its market's projected to cross the $1 billion mark by 2033. But Turkey and the UAE really caught my attention here as well.
Absolutely. Turkey demonstrates a very strong CAGR, over 5%, 5.073%,
Right.
indicating significant expansion.
Right.
And the UAE is showing particularly high growth, pushing nearly 5.5% annually.
Yeah.
5.507%.
5.5%, yeah.
These figures suggest, growing domestic demand and potentially emerging role in textile manufacturing or maybe specialized applications within the region. Egypt and Qatar also contribute with healthy growth rates, both in the mid-4% range.
Interesting dynamics there, too. Okay, our final region to deep dive into today is Africa. What's the story there?
Africa's market stood at about $1.59 billion in 2021. It's expected to reach $2.75 billion by 2033.
Okay, 2.75 billion.
Reflecting a 4.158% CAGR overall. So it's a region with significant potential, showing steady, if maybe somewhat more modest growth compared to some of those other dynamic areas we've discussed.
And South Africa stands out as the largest market within the region, right? Projected to grow at nearly 4.74% annually.
That's correct. Just under $640 million in 2021, heading towards $1.175 billion. And Nigeria also makes a significant contribution,
Okay.
growing at over 4.4% annually. While the rest of Africa shows a more moderate 3.5% CAGR, it's important to remember these are still growing markets, sort of building their base. The African continent as a whole presents this really interesting long-term growth story, I think.
So, okay, to sort of recap this deep dive, we've seen a remarkably consistent and, well, steady global growth trajectory for this textile fiber market.
Yeah, that 4.5% global KGR is pretty solid.
Definitely. And Asia Pacific is undeniably leading the charge. Just dynamic expansion, highest regional CAGR, driven significantly by standout performers like India, as you mentioned.
India's 6% plus growth is really something to watch.
For sure. And while the overall picture is one of, robust expansion, it's clear that the pace varies. It varies significantly from region to region and even country to country, as we saw with Germany versus Russia, for example.
Yeah.
These detailed numbers, they really paint a clear and I think actionable picture of where this market is headed, revealing shifts in manufacturing, consumption, maybe innovation too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Well, understanding these specific market movements in textile fibers, it gives you a deeper insight into the foundational elements of global manufacturing.
Right.
You get a sense of how consumer trends are evolving worldwide and the continuous innovation in materials that underpins so many industries from fashion, yeah, but also automotive, even healthcare, like we touched on.
Yeah.
It really highlights where capital is flowing, where industrial capabilities are expanding, and crucially, where demand is truly surging. It gives you a competitive edge, really, in understanding these global economic shifts. And this raises, I think, an important question for you to consider. Given these consistent growth trends across the globe, especially those really high rates in Asia, what new innovations, maybe in sustainable materials, which is a huge topic, or even unexpected shifts in consumer demand, do you anticipate will further shape this textile fiber market in the coming decade, especially in those high-growth regions like India or Southeast Asia?
That's a great question to ponder. It's incredible how much of our world is literally woven from these fibers, isn't it? And it's a market that's only set to grow. Think about the implications of this robust and expanding market for everyday products and, well, the intricate web of the global economy. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the global textile fiber market. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into the global textile fiber market. It's a really dynamic space.
Absolutely. A lot going on.
Yeah, and it's easy to just think fashion when you hear textiles.
Mm-hmm. That's the common view.
But it's so much bigger than that. Our sources really highlight how these fibers are like fundamental in loads of other industries too.
For sure. Cars, construction, medical.
Exactly. That's what I find fascinating, how it stretches into almost every part of our daily lives.
Right, and that's our mission today, really, to pull out the key insights from the sources, what's driving demand, what challenges are producers facing, and what new trends are shaking things up.
Think of it as the hidden threads connecting everything.
Nicely put, yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The sources point to some pretty big drivers pushing the market. First up, maybe the most obvious one, global demand for clothing.
Yep. More people, more clothes.
It seems like population growth, more people in cities, rising incomes.
Yeah.
It's all just cranking up our appetite for apparel.
Intensifying it, definitely. And that hits both ends, fast fashion and the premium stuff.
And all of that needs raw materials, right? Cotton, wool.
Or synthetics like polyester, nylon. They're essential. The scale's just huge now.
What's maybe the most, surprising application you've seen pop up from all this demand?
Oh, good question. It really takes us beyond just what we wear, as you said. What's equally interesting and maybe less obvious is the growth in technical and industrial textiles.
Ah, right. So not just clothes.
Exactly. We're talking automotive interiors, stuff for building materials, medical textiles, think advanced bandages or gowns and protective gear.
Like for firefighters or industrial workers.
Precisely. These aren't just fabrics, they're engineered materials. They enable whole new product types, new safety levels.
That is a huge shift. So these uses need special fibers.
Totally. High performance stuff. You need durability, flexibility, maybe fire resistance, chemical resistance.
Depending on the job.
Right. And as industries look for better solutions, the demand for these advanced fibers just keeps growing. It's really opening up new avenues for manufacturers.
Okay, so apparel demand, technical textiles.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, the third big catalyst, e-commerce. And just global retail networks generally.
Ah, the online shopping boom.
Yeah. It, along with brands expanding internationally, has just made textile goods accessible everywhere, like instantly.
And that speed changes things.
Hugely. Faster product cycles, trends spreading quicker because they're more visible. It forces manufacturers to invest more in fiber production, sure.
Yeah.
But also,
They have to be faster, more agile.
exactly, they need to rethink their whole supply chain to cope with all this diversity and the rapid pace of change.
Okay, so those are some powerful tailwinds, strong growth drivers.
Definitely.
But now, here's where it gets, I think, really interesting. Despite that growth potential, there are some serious hurdles, headwinds you could call them.
Oh, yeah, big ones.
And a major one seems to be the environmental impact, particularly from synthetic fibers.
Hmm. That's moved front and center.
Things like polyester, nylon. They come from petrochemicals, right? Fossil fuels.
Correct. So there's a significant carbon footprint tied to their production.
And then there's the end-of-life problem. They don't really biodegrade.
No. They break down into microplastics, which just persist for ages. It's a massive pollution issue.
Right. Ecosystems, oceans.
And what's really changing the game here is that this isn't just bad PR anymore.
It's hitting the bottom line.
It's becoming a real economic factor. You've got regulators stepping in, but also, crucially, consumers are pushing back.
So people are actively choosing other things.
Increasingly, yes, or demanding greener versions. So demand for those traditional synthetics, it could definitely soften. The pressure is on for alternatives.
Is that shift happening everywhere, though? Or are there still places where, polyester is king because it's cheap or it performs well?
That's a really important distinction. Yes, the pressure is broad, but in certain areas, maybe some demanding industrial uses, technical textiles, the cost and the proven performance of traditional synthetics are hard to beat right now.
So it's not a simple switch?
Not at all. It's a complex balance segment by segment.
Okay, environmental impact is huge. But what else is keeping textile bosses awake at night? The sources mention raw material prices. How does that actually affect them day to day?
That's spot on. Price volatility is another massive challenge.
Like cotton prices swinging wildly.
Exactly. Cotton, wool, but also the feedstocks for synthetics, the oil-based stuff. Prices can fluctuate dramatically.
And that hits profits hard.
Directly. It messes with your pricing, your planning, even just securing supply. If you're working on thin margins, which many are,
It must be incredibly disruptive.
it makes forecasting and production really, really difficult. It's almost like you need to be a commodity trader as much as a textile manufacturer sometimes.
Constantly watching the markets. Wow. Okay, what else?
Well, building on that global theme, trade issues and supply chain disruptions.
Oh, yeah. That seems to affect everything these days.
It really does. And this industry relies so heavily on complex global sourcing, getting raw materials from one place, processing them somewhere else, shipping finished fibers.
A lot of moving parts.
A lot. So any trade barrier, tariffs, political tensions, or even just straightforward shipping delays.
Like a ship getting stuck in a canal.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
It can just halt the flow, creates bottlenecks that ripple all the way through. Production gets delayed, deliveries get missed. It makes global coordination absolutely vital, but also very vulnerable.
You suddenly see all those invisible threads we talked about.
You really do. They become very visible when they break.
Okay, so we've got the drivers, we've got the challenges. The big question now is, what's next? What does this all mean for the future?
Right. Where is it all heading?
Our sources point to some key trends reshaping things. And the biggest, seems like, is that sustainability push we touched on.
Unquestionably. The shift towards sustainable and eco-friendly fibers is probably the most influential trend right now.
So we're seeing more demand for things like organic cotton, bamboo.
Organic cotton, bamboo, hemp, recycled polyester, especially recycled PET from bottles. Consumers want it. Brands are prioritizing it. It's driven by that environmental responsibility focus.
And companies are looking beyond just the materials too, right? Like how they make them.
Yes, definitely. There's huge interest in closed-loop systems.
Where you recycle the material back into new fiber endlessly.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
A circular economy for textiles. Plus, work on biodegradable options and just using fewer harmful chemicals in processing.
Okay, sustainability is huge. What else is emerging?
Another really exciting area is the rise of smart and functional fibers.
Smart fibers, like clothes with built-in tech?
Sort of, yeah. Innovations are allowing fibers to be made with advanced properties built right in.
Like what?
Think moisture wicking, UV protection, antimicrobial effects to reduce odor, temperature regulation, even conductivity for electronics.
Wow, so your shirt could actually do stuff.
Exactly. If you connect this to the bigger picture, textiles stop being just passive fabrics. They become active components in systems designed to, enhance comfort, performance, health.
That's incredible. Where are we seeing this most? Sportswear?
Sportswear and activewear, definitely. But also medical garments, protective clothing, and, yes, wearable technology integrations. It just creates whole new possibilities for value-added products. Fashion meets function in a really integrated way.
Cool. Okay, sustainability, smart fibers, any other big trends?
One more key one is the focus on blended fibers.
Mixing different types together.
Yeah, combining natural and synthetic fibers in one yarn or fabric. The goal is to create these hybrid textiles that give you the best of both worlds.
Like the comfort of cotton, but the durability of polyester?
Precisely that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Comfort, breathability from the natural side, strength, durability, maybe easier care from the synthetic side.
And presumably managing costs, too.
That's often a factor, yes. These blends are becoming really popular everywhere. Apparel, home furnishings, even industrial uses. They hit that sweet spot,
Yeah.
balancing cost effectiveness with genuinely superior performance for what's needed.
So, wrapping this up then, what we've really seen today is a textile fiber market that's, well, it's in massive transition.
Deeply in transition.
It's innovating incredibly fast, trying to tackle these huge environmental issues head on,
While also meeting consumer demands that are changing all the time.
and finding completely new ways to use fibers, things we wouldn't have imagined before.
Exactly. It's forcing adaptation and ingenuity across the board.
It really makes you think differently about the fabrics around us.
It does. And maybe this raises an important final question for you, the listener, to consider. As this complex market keeps evolving, keeps pushing the boundaries of material science and application, how will these ongoing innovations continue to subtly, maybe something's profoundly, change what we wear, how we live in our environments, and really the very fabric of our everyday lives in ways that we probably don't even expect yet?